Hello and welcome to Feel Good Fridays with Pastor Kristin on this first Friday in October. Can you believe it is October already? I am not sure that I can, but I'm excited. I love this time of year. I love fall. I love as the leaves start to change. All of it. I'm super excited. I'm not super excited about it being 85 degrees today, but I am excited about fall coming, and it looks like it will be getting significantly cooler and rainy this weekend. So if you worship with us in person, keep an eye out for emails and Facebook posts about whether or not we will be outside or inside this Sunday for worship. This is supposed to be our last outdoor worship for a while, but depending on the weather, we might be moving inside a week early. So just keep an eye out for information about that. Total tangent there. Was not intending to talk about all of that right now, but anyway, this weekend actually is kind of an exciting weekend for me, for a whole bunch of us that I went to college with, because this weekend is homecoming weekend at my alma mater. I'm sporting my Luther College shirt here, and it is my class's 25th reunion this weekend. I am not able to be there this weekend, but I'm still thinking about all of my friends from those days and starting to see pictures of people back on campus and wishing that I could be with all of you and celebrate this weekend. But that also has gotten me thinking a lot about home. I've had some conversations with folks this week about home, whether it is moving into a new home and being excited about that, or leaving a home that you've been in for a long time and maybe having some mixed feelings about that, or maybe not as mixed feelings about that as you thought you would, or a multitude of different ways to look at home. And it has me thinking about all of the different homes that I have had over my life. Born in Michigan, so that was my first home, and then moved to Wisconsin when I was only 5. And so Wisconsin for my whole life, really, my whole life after 5, I guess, Wisconsin has always felt like home. So no matter where I lived, I always claimed Wisconsin as home. My mom and dad have always lived in Wisconsin since we moved back. They're both from Wisconsin, so Wisconsin was home for them even when we lived in Michigan. So Wisconsin, first and foremost, home. But that has been different places in Wisconsin too. I grew up in Beloit, lived in Madison for a while, then moved away and moved back to Madison area. And so Wisconsin has often been home, it hasn't always been the same place. But I still would talk about my mom and dad's house as going home. And so even as I would call coming back to this place that I live now home, thinking about Luther as home and homecoming. I mean, I would be coming home if I was going to homecoming this weekend. That was my home for 4 years, and a place that I love, that shaped me like all of my other homes. For a while, I called Wichita home, and it was always interesting when I would come back to Wisconsin and have conversations with my parents about when I'm coming home or when I'm going home, because it seemed like we were always talking about me coming or going home, whether I was coming to Wisconsin or going to Wichita. Both of those places were home for me during that time. And so home can mean a lot of things. It can mean the actual building you live in, whether that is a house or an apartment or whatever that might be for you. Home can be the town that you live in, or the state that you live in, or maybe if you have been overseas, just getting back to the United States has felt like coming home. We have a lot of different definitions for what home means. But in the end, for those of us who are people of faith, our home is ultimately in God. And God's home is with us too. We have some great Bible verses that talk about where our home is and how God makes God's home with us. And so I know I usually just share one Bible verse, but I have a few for you today. Some of them that are probably super familiar, and others that you may or may not be quite as familiar. And so wanted to start with probably the one that is most familiar to all of us, and that is verse 6 of Psalm 23. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I shall dwell in the house of the Lord my whole life long. And that's not talking about just after we die. We live in the house of the Lord right now. God created this world that we live in. This is God's world, God's home, and God dwells with us in this place. Then another one that probably is pretty familiar. Sorry, I'm shaking you a little bit. I hit the stand. But from Revelation, talking about the new heaven and the new earth. From Revelation 21. And I heard a loud voice from the throne saying, "See, the home of God is among mortals. God will dwell with them, and they will be God's peoples, and God himself will be with them." Great, great words. And that is, again, not just for some future time, but we celebrate that God is with us now. And then from Ephesians, a portion of one of my very favorite passages from Ephesians 3. I pray that, according to the riches of his glory, Christ may grant that you may be strengthened in your inner being with power through his Spirit, and that Christ may dwell in your hearts through faith, as you are being rooted and grounded in love. And so a reminder that Christ dwells with us. No matter where we are at home with God because Christ dwells in us and with us every day. And so I've been thinking too about songs that talk about home. There are a lot of songs out there that talk about our home with God. A lot of songs that I probably would not be able to play and sing. And so I found an oldie but a goodie that talks about God calling us to come home, to come to God in everything that we need in every moment, because God's arms are open to us and God is welcoming us to come home. So you might recognize this one. I invite you to sing along if you do. Gotta slow it down a little bit. Used to playing a little bit faster. Softly and tenderly, Jesus is calling, calling for you and for me. See on the portals, he's waiting and watching, watching for you and for me. Come home, come home. You who are weary, come home. Earnestly, tenderly, Jesus is calling, calling, oh sinner, come home. Why should we tarry when Jesus is pleading, pleading for you and for me? Why should we linger and heed not his mercies, mercies for you and for me? Come home, come home. You who are weary, come home. Earnestly, tenderly, Jesus is calling, calling, oh sinner, come home. So a reminder for all of us today that wherever we are calling home these days, wherever we have called home throughout our lives, our true home is with God and in God, and God's home is in us. And so we are never alone. God is with us, and wherever we are can be home, because our home is ultimately in God. I hope that you remember that wherever you go, if you are traveling, if you're staying home an awful lot, and the home that you're living in right now is feeling a little claustrophobic, remember that our true home is in God. If you are in the Madison area, I hope you join us for worship on Sunday in the parking lot. As I mentioned earlier, is the plan, but the rain that is forecasted might drive us inside a week early. We'll gather at 9 for worship, whether we are outside or inside, and so hope you'll join us for that. And then a reminder that we also are having our first Sunday school of the year this Sunday, open to people of all ages. Intergenerational means that we have our young people and our people with more life experience that are coming together to learn together. And so whether you are 1 or 101, I hope that you will join us for our intergenerational Sunday school following worship on Sunday around 10:15. I think that's all I've got for you today. I hope you all have a wonderful weekend and hope to see you on Sunday. If not in person, here on Facebook and YouTube, Facebook at 9 and YouTube by 10:45. Have a great weekend, everybody.